Some stories seem so simple on the surface, maybe like a tale you'd read to a kid. But when you dig in, they hold these incredibly powerful lessons about what we value, what we overlook, and maybe most importantly, the quiet cruelty of just not paying attention. Today, we're diving into one of those, the classic tale of a humble daisy and a captive lark.
So, let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the countryside, right by a farmhouse. And these beautiful opening lines, they introduce our first character, and it's not one of the big, fancy flowers in the garden. Nope, it's a small, simple daisy, just growing in the grass. Right from the get-go, we know this daisy is something humble, something you could easily just walk right by.
All right, so this first part of the story is really all about contrasts. We're about to see the world through the eyes of this little flower, and how its view of things clashes, big time, with the world right next to it.
I mean, listen to that. This is the daisy's entire philosophy right here. It's not looking over at the grand flowers in the garden with envy. It doesn't need their attention. It finds all the richness it needs in the simple things: the sun, the air, a bird song. In its own little patch of grass, it is 100% content.
And here's where we see that contrast laid out so clearly. On one side, you have our daisy, humble, happy, totally at peace. And on the other, you've got the garden flowers, the peonies and tulips. The story calls them haughty and proud. Sure, they look magnificent, but there's no real substance there. They just end up being puffed up, sulky, and kind of mad at the world.
So everything's in this state of, well, balance. But then a visitor shows up, and its arrival totally proves the daisy's worldview right, while at the same time completely shaking up the garden flower's pride.
And just like that, the whole dynamic of the garden gets interrupted. From way up high in the sky, a creature of pure freedom and song starts to make its way down. This moment right here is just perfect. It gets right to the core of the story's message. The lark, this amazing symbol of nature and freedom, just completely ignores the big, flashy, proud flowers. It flies right past them and lands right next to the little, overlooked daisy. And look at what the lark does. It's so deliberate. It doesn't just land nearby and call it a day. It actually engages with the daisy. It hops around it, sings about its golden heart and silver dress, and even kisses the flower. This is a real, profound connection. One free spirit recognizing another. So, how are the big shots in the garden taking all this? Well, not great. They're basically fuming. The story says they stood even stiffer, their faces turning red with frustration. They just cannot understand why this incredible bird would choose something so common over them. Their pride is seriously wounded.
Okay, you might want to take a breath here, because this is where the story takes a sharp, tragic turn. That beautiful moment of joy we just saw, it's about to be a distant memory. The world for both the lark and the daisy is going to shrink down to the size of a tiny, cruel cage.
The very next morning, the daisy hears the lark's song again. But something's wrong. It's not a happy song anymore. It's filled with sorrow. The bird has been captured, put in a cage, and the daisy is just overwhelmed with this need to help. But this question just hangs in the air, It highlights how completely helpless it is. The lark's song is no longer about joy. It's a lament, a sad, painful song about every single thing it's lost. The sky, the fields, its freedom. This isn't just sadness. It's this deep, profound grief from a creature whose whole identity is tied to being free. And here it is. This is the moment where the two worlds of our story collide in the most brutal way imaginable. Two boys show up and they think they're doing something nice for the lark. They decide to cut a little square of grass to put in its cage, a tiny piece of the world it used to have. And right in the middle of that piece of grass is our little daisy. Once inside the cage, the dying lark actually speaks to the daisy, and it sees it as a fellow prisoner. And then comes one of the most heartbreaking lines in the whole story. The lark says the daisy isn't a comfort at all. It's actually a painful reminder of the huge, beautiful world that's been stolen from both of them.
So the final moments of this story are absolutely chilling, and what happens next isn't some act of pure evil. It's something that's maybe even more devastating. It's the result of simple, casual thoughtlessness. Let's just walk through this timeline of a slow, completely preventable death. The boys who caught the bird, they just forget about it. The lark cries out for water, but nobody comes. In its last moments, it tears at the grass, trying to find any moisture. But in one last, tender act, it avoids hurting the little flower.
By morning, its heart has literally broken from thirst and longing.
And here's the final, crucial point. The boys? Oh, they weep and weep for the bird they neglected. They give it a royal burial in a box, cover it with flowers. Their grief is loud, it's a performance. But the daisy, the silent friend that was there for the lark's final moments, it's just unceremoniously tossed out onto the road, completely forgotten.
So wow, what are we supposed to take away from this short, incredibly sad story? Let's step back from the narrative for a second and really look at the powerful themes it leaves us with. At the end of the day, this fairy tale is a masterclass in contrasts. It shows us the quiet dignity of the humble daisy versus the empty pride of the garden flowers. It teaches us that real value isn't about being seen, it's about what you're made of inside. But the biggest gut punch? It's about the devastating cruelty of just not thinking. The boy's tears for the lark are meaningless because they come too late. It's just a hollow gesture that completely misses the point.
And this story leaves us with a final, lingering question, doesn't it? It kind of forces you to look around your own life and ask, who are the daisies that we're overlooking? What quiet, valuable things are we just casting aside without a second thought? And whose song of suffering are we forgetting to hear until it's already too late?